Welcome to the final Literary Libations with Librarians for 2021. And this time we're saying goodbye to 2021 and thanks for these new favorite reads that we read during this year. As we're sharing our titles that were some of our favorites during 2021, if you're interested in getting your hands on any of them, there's several ways to go about doing so. You can always call your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and talk to the staff there, and they'll be more than happy to assist you. If a title is available in a physical version, a hardcover, paperback, an audiobook on CD, or large print, you can request those through our online catalog, and that web address is on your screen now. If a title is listed as being available on one of our digital platforms, you can go straight to those digital platforms. Our first one is Overdrive, which you may hear referred to as Libby because Libby is the app for Overdrive. And Overdrive provides downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also magazines. And the other is Hoopla, and Hoopla provides downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And the great thing about Hoopla is that the vast majority of titles on Hoopla, there is never a wait for. Those are called instant borrows, and they will have a little lightning bolt next to them. And when you see them, you can download them immediately. I am Jennifer Graneski, and I'm the community librarian at the Dundee branch. And our introductory question for this week is, what is your favorite memory from 2021? And this is a hard one because you look back at a year and there's so many things. And I think I'm still going to go with our spring break trip to Hocking Hills as a family. That was just a really good time away after a really, 2020 was rough. And so 2021, we looked forward to getting to get away, be in a cabin. We went hiking the trails. We played a lot of Exploding Kittens together. And if you have not played Exploding Kittens, then you should really look into that because it will make your world a happier place. So I think just that family time, being outdoors, we had beautiful weather when we were there. So I think that is what I will look back at this year and say, thanks 2021 for that. And also with us this week is Jen McCarty, a reference librarian at the Ellis branch. And what is one of your favorite memories from the last year?
I think I'm also going to go with a trip. In the beginning of the year, we decided we were going to attempt to Disney World, and we booked the trip, and it was like, oh, certainly by the time we go, the world will be normal again. And it was not. But we decided to go ahead with it anyway and try to be as safe as possible. And I was a nervous wreck. And up until the day we left, I was like, we could cancel, maybe we shouldn't go. But we did, we went anyway, and luckily everyone was safe and healthy and, no issues. But one of my favorite things that we were able to do this time was we went with friends, and so much fun to just, obviously Disney World is awesome and it's, it's a good time anyway, but just being able to experience, like my kids are bigger now. One of the best parts was the family that we went with. They have a teenager and a child younger, like my boys. And so one evening we left the kids in the hotel room and left Big Brother in charge. And we took the Skyliner back to Epcot and did food and wine without children. And I mean, I love my boys, but it was so much fun to just like do this, really fun thing with friends. And it was rainy and dreary, and we had a blast anyway. And my youngest has some food allergies, so a lot of things, we won't get in front of him. And since he wasn't there, we were able to eat whatever we wanted without feeling too guilty about it. And it was just so much fun. The whole trip was great, but that little evening was a super highlight for me.
That's awesome. Everybody needs a break sometimes, and a break at Disney. Best break ever.
And I mean, the kids didn't care. They were hanging out in the hotel with their friends.
Yeah, they're having
they
fun.
played video games and went to bed.
That's right. Thanks, Jen. Also with us this week is Isabella Arnold, who is a sub throughout the Monroe County Library System. And what's one of your favorite memories from this year?
Well, I have two. One's kind of just like a low key, but like such a great thing. So my son is 1, almost 2, and this year we're big readers, And this year he learned like his favorite thing is to like slowly back up into you, and like he'll walk backwards with a book until he finally like touches a leg and then expects to immediately get picked up and read to. And that's like, we love it so much. Like we think it's the cutest, and he still does it to this day, of just the slow back up with the book. Like he makes no eye contact. He just knows someone will pick him up and read to him. And then my other memory is more like a concrete one. And we took him to go look at Christmas lights on Sunday. And it was just so precious to see his little face going, wow, wow, wow. And he just kept doing all these hand gestures. And yeah, I'm talking about you right now. He's over staring at me like, what are you doing there, Mom? And yeah, it was just so magical to see like such a cute like switch in his brain of this is crazy. That tree is lit up. So yeah, those are my two fun memories from 2021.
Little ones always have that way of reminding you of all the amazing things that are still out there that we're often like, just, I love that. Wow, it's also exciting. Thank you, Isabella. And also with us this week is Ashley Leifer, the community librarian at the Summerfield Petersburg branch. And what's one of your favorite memories this year, Ashley?
So not to copy Jen, but we were lucky enough to go to Disney as well this year. We went in May, and actually almost everyone in our group, the whole reason we went was because everybody was able to be vaccinated, with the exception of like 2 of the youngest kids. So we felt pretty safe, and you know, Disney is stellar at keeping things safe. So like Jen, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't want to go, but my husband, I never want to take trips. My husband always has to kind of force me to. I'd rather stay home with my dogs. So, you know, it was good. It was great when we went. And the nice thing is, this is the first time we've gone with friends. So we took my niece and, sorry, my dog likes to scratch his dog food bowl. We took my niece, and so she had 2 kids to play with, but we also got to go with my brother and sister-in-law and their little baby who's almost 2. So he was like 1.5 when we went. And it was so fun to see, like you said, Bella, to see him taking everything in and like running around and being crazy. And I think he helped even the other 3 kids have more fun, because, you know, they were wrangling him and he was a mess all the time. And, you know, Mickey ice cream bar like all over his entire body. But it was really fun. And I definitely am so grateful we were able to do that.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. And on all of that positivity, we're going to move into some of our favorite reads from 2021. And I'm going to ask Isabella to get us started.
So I picked 3 books. Well, I'll start with a quick one, a quick shout out. One of the books I just read, that Aaron Slater illustrator, and it just came out very recently. And I had such a good old reaction reading this book. I was just crying as I was reading it, when it's about a little boy who is struggling to read, and he's an illustrator and draws all these beautiful pictures, and he has a homework assignment of writing a story, and he just can't put out the words, but then he just makes this beautiful story, and it's amazing. And this illustrator always writes in rhyme, and it's just super easy to read, free flowing. Like, it was beautiful. I think it's my favorite illustrated book, or my favorite picture book ever. I wish I would have talked about it the last time. And yeah, my dog's stuck on the other side of the baby gate, so he may be a little vocal right now. And then my other book that I pulled out is The Year of Less. And when I was reviewing the title to be like, why did I choose this? I thought, why did I choose this? Like, the whole thread of the book is kind of like, it's not really a biography, and it's not a self-help book, but it's a year with this woman, and a lot of stuff happens, and a lot of terrible stuff happens, and one thing that she realizes is how intense with consumerism she is. And so she just makes it her point to, you know, spend less. And it was really fascinating to see just how much she could distill from her life and distill from her shopping and distill from kind of how she dealt with her problems. And there's so much background noise. I'm so sorry. I just realized all this.
But they're having fun.
So much fun. Yeah. And so Year Less, it's about a journey in a woman's life and about really taking a look at what's surrounding you, relationships, personal, like jobs, and then your stuff. And one aspect that I really enjoyed was, you know, everything that you bring into your house costs money. Like everything that you possibly bring in costs money. And I feel like we've really lost the concept of repairing things that are broken, growing our own food, trying to make do with what we have instead of just going out and buying and buying and buying. Like the second something breaks, you know, just buy a new one. And we just recently had this come up in our own family because my son has these little like bugs. Technically, all you cat people, you may have seen them, the nano hex bugs or whatever. We have them for my son because we saw that they were a good thing to bring on an airplane and once, and so we brought those with us. And so some of them have stopped working, and we thought, you know, should we just buy a new pack, or do we just buy batteries? And so, you know, we can buy 100 batteries for $10 and instead of like 5 hex bugs for $20. Lima, can you go take that to Toulouse, please? I'm getting quiet, Mr. Toulouse over at the baby gate. And so I've really thought back about that book about, you know, what do we actually need to bring into our homes? What do we actually need to buy with our money? And what can we, you know, repair and fix? So that's Year of Less. I mean, if you pick it up, I listened to it on audio. If you pick it up, you might be like, this is really drab. But underneath it all, I thought it was a really great lesson and a really great way to look at our lives. And then my third book came out this year, How to Raise Kids Who Are Not Butts. And so I remember processing this book and being like, wow, like what a bold title, like interesting. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to request this. Like, I don't need to read this. But then the image of the little hand with the dinosaur, I taught preschool for a while. And I can remember one 3-year-old who would take the plastic Brontosaurus Rex and like beat me with it. And I remember thinking like, I actually think I want to read this book now. And so I listened to this one on audio as well this summer, and so good. It's super current, just came out in 2021. And I feel like it's really talking about a lot of issues that are happening today. And it talked a lot about, you know, current things that are happening today. And so that is applicable to our children. It's not like a child book or a parenting book that was written in like the late 80s that is also prevalent, but it doesn't have as many current things. Like they touch on like the Trump election, they touch on Black Lives Matter and different things in the political, economic world of today. And I thought it was just fascinating, the science behind it. I love a good scientific parenting book. Give me all those facts and figures in that research paper. I love it. And I just thought it was really fascinating about how, you know, one chapter was how to raise children that aren't sexist. And they noticed that if you take away the label of boy and girl, if you take that completely away, then it really lowered your chances or lowered that bias that kids have towards only girls can play with Barbies, only boys can do this. But in that same token, they've noticed that with children and then in racism, if you take away the races, it actually makes children act and behave a little bit more racist. And so by really celebrating that difference and noting differences, it really helps celebrate, and then kids aren't as racist, I guess. And I thought that was really interesting how, you know, you take off one, but you need to put on the other. And it talks about the science of that and there was a really cool chapter about like dangerous play, and she started it off like, never in my wildest mind would I ever think that like my 7-year-old would be like holding a chainsaw. And you know, teaching about that risk assessment and teaching about how to control your body and control your surroundings, and teaching them younger, you know, this is how we use a knife. Like, let's learn how to use this knife now, instead of you fumbling with it for quite a while. And yeah, I thought it was really prevalent. She had a great chapter on screen time, because I feel like, you know, screen time. So do I let my child watch this video? Do I not? And one thing she said was like her 10-year-old, or I can't remember the age exactly, was really into coding. And she was like, wow, look at this great life skill that he has that he would never have had if I took away the iPad and was like, no, 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 just go play with the trees outside. So I thought that was just really like validating that, you know, screen time's not going to melt my son's brain. I mean, that even being said, his favorite videos are like construction sites in like real time, like an excavator just digging out a little mountain. That's all he watches, if we do let him watch something. So yeah, it's super current, super interesting. It is a little dry. I listened to it on audio while I was gardening, and it was super, I have found it really interesting, and I kept sharing passages of it with my mother. Like, listen to this. And she's like, wow, just tell me about it. I don't feel like I need to read it. But yeah, so those were my 3 books. Yeah. Ta-da.
Thank you, Isabella. I don't know what it was in, but I remember, I want to say it's in a country, I think it was Japan, but if it's not Japan, don't quote me. But there's like a park that children can go to that's filled with tools and things, and they just go and play there. And they talked about some of the things you did about teaching them their ability to control their environment and how to handle things safely and properly, and how to treat other people well when they're in your environment. I just found it fascinating. Like, they could go and like pound on nails and things like that.
There's a lot of nature schools that do that. I've read a couple. I think there was one in there's never bad weather, or it's always fair weather, something like that. It's a American mother that moved to Sweden, and her kids were all in nature schools, and she's like, yeah, we just walked up and there's just a log full of hammers, and like they invited my 3-year-old to take in a hammer and to go do X, Y, and Z with it. And yeah, no, I find we let Lehman play on ladders. Like, let's figure out this ladder. Like, yeah, I feel like it really opened up our eyes that, you know, so often you think, don't touch that, it's sharp, don't touch that, don't, like, you could hurt yourself. But when you teach them like the proper ways to handle things, like, it's kind of cool. We wanted to get Leah a tool set for Christmas or whatever, and so I had found all these cute, you know, wooden ones, and I showed it to my husband. He's like, no, like, if we're gonna get him a tool set, like, it needs to like kind of be functional. Like, I want him to be able to actually like do the things with me, you know. That's too obscure. Like, that screwdriver won't do anything.
Right. To make the connection of what they really do.
Yeah, but I was also like, I don't want him to give him a metal screwdriver and have him put it
in. It's balancing all of that with the observation and stuff. With ours with Tony, and I know this, we're not talking about books, sorry if you're listening, but ours with Tony was baking. You know, like, he started baking really early on, and for me to learn to let him do all the things. He can run the mixer, he can cut stuff, he can, you know, and the hardest one was when he was, I don't know how old, he can put things in and out of the oven. You know, like, you can learn how to do this carefully. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for trying to let our kids learn at their own skill level, but also do it when they can. So thank you, Isabella. And let's have Jen share her favorite reads from 2021 next.
Okay, well, while Bella was learning a lot this year, I have really hit the comfort book hard. So the first book I want to talk about was actually, I searched it out based on one of these conversations. A couple months ago, Sarah Willarius made not even a book that she talked about, but she said she'd read a series of romance books that were set at Renaissance festivals. And I was like, what's that? I don't know if this is the title that she was talking about, but it fits the bill and I loved it. So the first book I want to talk about is called Well Met by Jen Deluca. And it takes place at Renaissance Festival. Our main character's name is Emily, and she has moved to a really small town. She has her and her long-term boyfriend broke up at the same time that her sister was in a really bad car accident. So Emily goes, well, this is a good time for me to, I don't really have anything here in the city that I'm living in. I'm going to move to this tiny little town and help my sister. Her sister has a freshman in high school. So she's like, this will be good. I can help around their house. I can help my sister while she recovers. So Emily moves to this little town, and her niece Caitlin really wants to volunteer with the local Renaissance Festival. But there's a stipulation that if you are under 18, an adult has to do it with you. And obviously her mom is in no shape to do it because she's been in this really bad car accident and is going through, physical therapy and recovering. So Emily's like, all right, here we go. This is what I'm here for. I can volunteer. And she's so not into it, like at all. And the person who's running its name is Simon, and he takes it way too seriously. And she's like, ugh, what is this guy's deal? And of course, eventually sparks fly. Oh, it's just super cute. It's light, it's funny. It's a very small Renaissance festival. So I liked kind of like the little backstory there. They talk a little bit about how they started, like putting it on. It's sounds very similar to like the Michigan Renaissance Festival. It happens, 1 month a year. It's mostly volunteers. They do have outside, vendors that come in and whatnot, but really cool. And I kind of liked like how some of them take it way too seriously. It was just fun. It was fun. It was light. It was an easy read. There are 2 more after this one, and they all follow a different couple. The characters are all the same. The second book is called Well Played, and the third book is called Well Something also. But they're all super cute, and they were just fun and light, and it made me happy. And I was like, yay, Renaissance Festival. So that was that one. My second book, also super fun and light, is called the X Hex. This one just came out this year. I read it around Halloween-ish time. The main character in this one is named Vivi, and when she was like 19, she had a boyfriend named Reese, and her and Reese broke up, and it was kind of traumatic, and she was really angry about the whole thing. Vivi also happens to be a witch. So her and her cousin, kind of goofing around, decide to curse him. They're not doing it for real. They're kind of playing like more of a cathartic, like, this jerk, you broke up with this jerk. Let's get him out of our system. Well, maybe the curse worked a little too well. So at the time Reese was in town, he was leaving town. That's part of the reason they broke up. It cuts to, 9-ish years later, and Vivi is still in the town. She's working at the local college. Her cousin and her aunt run this pagan witchy store, but like, of course, most people in the town don't realize that they really are witches. And Reese's family are also witches, and they were the founders of this town. And apparently every 10 years or so, they have to come in and renew the ley lines, and somebody from the founder's family is the one who has to do this. So Reese gets tasked with, he lives in Europe, he's actually Welsh. He gets tasked with going back to this little town in Georgia to renew the ley lines, and he hasn't been here since he broke up with Vivi. And upon entering the town, the curse takes hold, and chaos kind of ensues. He of course runs back into Vivi, and it turns out that their whole breakup was a little bit of not a miscommunication, but they both handled it really poorly. They both still kind of carry a torch for each other, but now they have this added thing where they discover, oh yeah, remember when we broke up and I cursed you? Oops. he's got this curse that accidentally ends up transferring to the town. It's really funny, like some of the weird stuff that ends up happening. It's right around Halloween, so there's a lot of weirdness. A ghost is unleashed. It was just fun and cute. Little romance with a side of supernatural. An easy read. I think I read it in like a day and a half. Definitely just fun, light, happy, silly, little romance, little supernatural, just enjoyable comfort book. And that's what I've been all about for 2021.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. And let's have Ashley share some of her favorite reads from 2021.
Okay, so first, Jen, I have the X Hex right now. I saw it on like every form of social media possible. It was just like in your face.
Yes, yes, it was.
And I've checked it out like twice, but I never got to it. I started it last night, so I'm really excited.
It took me a second to get into it, but once I did, like it was just, it's cute.
Yeah, it was in your face for a reason, probably.
It was. It really was. That's why I got it too.
So my books, I'll talk about, the first one is the Red Address book by Sofia Lundberg, I believe. Yes. So this was actually a book club read, and the reason I liked it so much is because it was written differently than anything I'd read before, really. So the main character, Doris, is 93, if I remember correctly. And she lives by herself. She lives in Sweden. The only relative she has is a niece who lives here in America. So she's completely by herself, this 93-year-old woman. She does have like a home nurse come in every day, and I think they make her dinner. Everything else is kind of microwaved. She's starting to be forgetful, obviously. But when she was a little girl, her dad had given her a Red Address book. So throughout her life, P.S., this is set like I know part of it was in the 30s. So this was set a while ago. But so throughout her life, everyone she met, she has put their name in the book and, all their information. And as they've passed throughout the years, she's crossed them out. So as she's aging, she's, one day she's looking through her book and it really hits her how she's like, almost everybody she knows has passed, which that part of this book is terribly sad. But the actual book goes on, and what she decides to do is she wants to write like her life for her niece and write about all these people and everything she's experienced. So she does. So each chapter is kind of about a different person. And so it chronicles her life. So she was a model in Paris in the 30s. When World War II hit, she came to America to try and stay safe. At one point, she had to take in her little sister, which is how she has the niece. And so, like I said, it was just written in a really different way. I found it very interesting that like you had this one story, but within it you had many stories. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good read for our book club too. I would recommend that one. Also, I'm getting a little distracted because my dog is on the table. He's on the table. This dog, I can't.
He wanted to share his favorite read too.
He is the worst. I mean, adorable, but still terrible. The other one's sitting on the dining room chair next to me. Anyways, the other book I read is more of a fun, light, fluffy read, which it was another one that I felt like I saw pushed everywhere, like on a lot of social media and stuff. So it's called Red, White, and Royal Blue by Mcquinn, Questin. And so this is about 3 kids, basically. There's a brother and a sister, and their mom has just been named the first woman president, first female president. So part of the story is that they have a bit of a Mexican background. So there's a little bit of like the things that they have to deal with as not being, completely American. We've seen, how that goes. So there's a little bit of that, But it follows mostly the first son, Alex, and so it's Alex, his sister, and then the VIP vice president's granddaughter. They're called the White House Trio, these three, because they're always together, they're always seen together, everything. They're just a really close group of friends. So actually, she's been the president. She's actually going up for re-election. So the country has gotten used to seeing these three kids together all the time, and they're just called the White House Trio. So in one of the international social duties that the president is trying to fulfill, they come across the Prince Henry, and him and Alex don't get along well. They kind of just butt heads. So they're at a party and there's a big scene, obviously, and so now they're in damage control mode, because you can't have like a big deal between two international families, so they're in damage control. So the prince and Alex have to pretend to be friends. Like the scene that was all just kind of a misunderstanding, and now they have to be friends. So they have scheduled like social things for them to do together in order to kind of clear the air and make it seem like everything is fine. And while doing this, it turns out they kind of hate each other because they actually kind of like each other, obviously. But how's that going to go? Because there's that whole extra layer. He's a prince, he's not, like, it's a big mess. But it's super fun and so cute. And it really was it was a good, fun read. It was another quick one, which I appreciate because I can't focus well. So I read it pretty quick. And it really, I think about it and it just makes me smile. So I recommend that one.
I have had this on my to read list for the last year because I kept seeing it everywhere. And I'm like, this sounds super cute, and I just haven't gotten to it. So I'm glad to hear it's good. I'm going to have to move it up the queue.
It is super cute. Yep.
I just have to say, I must be on different social media than you do. Because I do not get it. They're like, these aren't.
Yours is probably full of
Jennifer.
do you like murder and mayhem? This is for Jennifer Grudnowski. Do you like fun and happy?
Yes, mine are all horror. Hey, terrible things are happening to humanity. Let's read these books. And in fact, the books I'm going to talk about are pretty much both like that. So social media advertising definitely works, but it clearly is no, here's your books, and over here you get these books. If you want happy, no, too bad.
I think every book that gets recommended to me via social media is actually probably some sort of Hallmark story. Cheesy, and listen, it's Christmas season. You better believe I'm watching all the cheesy Christmas movies. There's just enough negativity. I want all the cheesy goodness and predictability that I can get.
That is good. See, we have a wide variety here, which is what we need. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share mine, which are not happy, feel-good stories, and yet a little bit hopeful. So first of all, it was a little hard to choose books because I felt like I had already kind of talked about all the books that I had really enjoyed in 2021. But I went back through my list and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't talk about these two, probably because they never quite fit into whatever theme we had chosen. So the first one is Sarah Langen's Good Neighbors. And when I wrote my review for Goodreads, I started just with wowzers. Kind of mind-blowing. At the end, I was just like, wow, what did I just read? So in the book, it is July 4th, 2027. And we are on Maple Street in Long Island, New York, and it is about to be ripped apart physically, socially, mentally. So they're on this circle and there's about 20 homes there, and a sinkhole opens in the park that is around it. A child dies and the whole neighborhood just loses their minds. it is a very dark look into suburbia and this often dark and desperate need to try and present the perfect family, that everything is fine. I've got it together. I know what I'm doing. Look, my kids are happy. We did this. We did this. When what is really maybe needed for all of us, as one of the characters says in the book, that the difference between her and a neighbor who becomes very violent is that Gertie wasn't ever scared to show people her mess. Yeah, she knew her kids weren't perfect. She knew there were problems, but she would admit them and deal with them. The book started a little slow for me, and there are definitely some repetitive moments in the beginning. But honestly, for this weird drama horror novel, it also brought me to tears a couple times because people can be awful, but they can also be mind-blowingly kind and empathetic in the worst of times to the worst of people. And there was one moment in this book where I was like, it was that mind-blowing moment of grace that you don't see very often. So I also want to give a shout out. So in the book, there are intervals in between some of the chapters with a history of what happens on Maple Street in 2027. And let's just say that this history was a really interesting look at how whoever controls the narrative controls the truth. Because you would be getting the story from what happened, and then you would read this version of it that was released years later. And it was another interesting perspective to pack into a book that had a lot in it. And there is a lot. There's group hysteria, there's self-justification, childhood trauma, cyclical family pain, climate change, let's throw that in there, child and adult friendships and how those develop. So there's a lot in it. And if you are a psychological horror fan or you really like domestic dramas, I would say pick it up. By the end, I just felt sort of blown away in a lot of different ways. So that's Good Neighbors by Sarah Langan. The other one is a book that I saw on a lot of my social media. When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. When it was released, it got a lot of attention. And part of that, I feel, because this is the book's description, its own description. The gentrification of a Brooklyn neighborhood takes on a sinister new meaning in this Rear Window meets Get Out thriller. Get Out, that was one of my, Jordan Peele's movie was amazing. And Rear Window, Hitchcock, sign me up. Where, like, just give me this book now. I need this book in my life. And it actually was a pretty apt description. I feel like it's more Get Out than Rear Window, but it was really good. And it's a horror novel that's even more horrifying because of the many smaller everyday horrors that Sydney, who is our main character, who is a Black woman living in a historically Black neighborhood that is slowly being turned over by various businesses and people, and it's gentrifying, but it's gentrifying in a really threatening, terrifying way. But some of those everyday horrors are real, and they're too easily ignored if you're white and privileged, which I happen to be. So novels like this one that are able to center BIPOC characters and are written by own voices authors and that are also genre works, I think are so important because they expose more people to what it is like to be viewed as other or different and to give us more empathy. One of my favorite things about reading, creates more empathy for all sorts of people. So there's all of that going on, and Sydney knows that something is going on, but she doesn't know exactly what it is or how terrible it's going to turn out to be when she starts investigating Verintech, which is the company that is poised to move in its headquarters down the block. And as things turn more sinister, she starts to uncover the truth, and then she has to decide, Is she going to stay and fight, or is she going to get out? And the last 50 pages are like an action adventure movie. Like they are moving you right along, and I really loved the ending. And Alyssa Cole actually was known more for writing romances prior to this novel. But if she writes more thrillers, I'm going to be there to pick them up. And then I do have one final tiny shout out, because I already have talked about probably my favorite read from this year, which is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. And I just can't keep talking about it because I feel like it has not gotten like all the social media stuff. And so if people just want a good read, they should pick this one up or listen to it. I listened to it. And if you like locked room, Agatha Christie mystery set on the high seas with a little bit of historical fiction and superstition being proved nonsense by great detectives, pick it up. So that was my favorite of the year. It's just a great listen, and I really enjoyed it. So I think that's it for us in 2021. Thank you to everybody who shared your titles today. Thank you to those who listened. We hope that you have a great end of 2021, and we will see you again in 2022. Thank you. Bye.